So I went back a ways, and everyone's familiar with these kind of age of humanity, right? These are generally accepted dates, and the titles are even more generally accepted about how humanity has progressed over the ages. Like Istanbul was kind of halfway between that first one, 650 BC or something. So according to most Wikipedia sources, we're still stuck in the computer age here, and no one's defined the one after that. What age of man are we going to be entering into next with revolution, excellence, and agility? So I say, we're already in this. I think that connectivity of social media, the third, fourth generation of the web, all this working interdisciplinary with artists and technicians, I'd like to think we can all make that happen. And maybe it'll be an official Wikipedia data point pretty soon. But hopefully you'll agree with me. And that is really it. So. If you want lots of other articles and fun stuff related to this, like us on Facebook, of course, talk about social media. And Q&A.
Okay.
Oh, questions, yes.
Question, yeah. So, most of us older people were brought up with the idea of creating artwork or creative output coming from a personal vision. Obviously, we know that model is changing as you described for us.
Right.
How do you manage to keep the kind of drive that comes from working with a personal vision without, and perhaps the answer is hierarchy. Maybe it is still one person, but to get the collaboration. How do you balance that? And especially with students who were not enticed with money necessarily as the motivation, but passion.
It's a great question. And all of this, my passion for interdisciplinary collaboration, all that absolutely doesn't preclude my personal desire of being an individual artist, right? So it's not mutually exclusive, in other words. But the point about, especially in the classroom, is really a good one. I teach the seniors' capstone project, which you saw some photographs of the film that we're producing. And that's actually the main challenge, is every year, it's a 2-semester capstone, so we teach it from September to April, and we get roughly about a dozen students into that every year. And they're from all kinds of different majors, disciplines, right? We've got computer science, graphic design, digital art, music technology, production management. And the ratios are always different. And my biggest challenge as producer director of the class is to give enough of a clear assignment that it's inspirational and it has a focus, a direction, a goal, but not so much that they don't feel empowered with their own personal contribution, which I think kind of goes to your point. So it's really hard to balance that, because if I say, well, I kind of like to do something like this, what do you think? In the first class, not so good, because last year's capstone, I kind of erred a little bit on that side, and it took a long time to bring everybody together to kind of there's more direction than that. It took a long time to get everybody's personal buy-in and their contributions. But I don't want to go so far on the other directions to say, here's a blueprint, just build this building. Because then they don't have any personal input to it at all.
I feel in solidarity with the question that you asked, and I would like to follow that up by putting this directly into the context of special effects in Hollywood films, which I think was one of the main topics here. Right. Now, it seems to me that storytelling and the quality of the ideas and the narrative is what has made a lot of these great films that you mentioned great, in addition to the special effects. So I think what made Jurassic Park a great film and 2001 a great film, and in some ways contributed to Douglas Trumbull's fantastic reputation, is Steven Spielberg made a lot of films with great ideas.
Right, Stanley Kubrick.
Right, I
Together.
related Kubrick and Spielberg into one person, which would be the AI artificial intelligence person. But I think, so I felt you're underestimating the importance of the storytelling, and also that Hollywood film studios are a, corporate capitalist industry,
right,
mainly interested in money, and the majority of these blockbuster films, which have fantastic innovations in special effects and computer animation, however, the majority of the films, if not the vast majority, are eminently forgettable. I mean, like the most recent Planet of the Apes film,
right,
I think is an excellent film because it actually does have some very interesting ideas in addition to the great makeup and special effects. The previous Planet of the Apes film of about 5 years ago, everyone has forgotten that, the first Eric Burton one,
right,
because it was absolutely mediocre in its ideas. It had zero ideas.
right.
So that's a big difference between these great films like Jurassic Park and the majority, which are where the studios censor, they want formulas and cliches
Well, it's not about it
in the narrative,
right? It's about
because they don't want to take risks.
sequels, remakes, right?
So I guess my question would be, how does that, like, I know that it's a lot of fun for you and very exciting to be working on great special effects,
right,
independent of whether the film is a good or a mediocre film, but
right,
does the quality, is there an excitement of working on a Jurassic Park kind of film coming that this is a great film in its ideas, and then that makes the special effects work even more important?
I don't think so. I can't remember. Yeah, I worked on about 20 major feature films, mostly in visual effects or feature animation. I don't think I've ever actually been working on a film and have known that this is going to be a great film. I've worked on quite a few that I've known were not going to be great films. that was kind of easy. No, even working on Titanic or Star Wars or Jim Cameron films with these fantastic directors, I guess you maybe have an expectation that they're going to be better than average. But more than that, I think your point to Cynthia Beth's question was, filmmaking is probably the best example of the balance of individual artistic contribution and the group collaboration. Not really on the workstation level that I pointed out, because there it just gets to be kind of digital cooperation. That's not really that great. But above the line, like we call it in production, above the line, director, producer, cinematographer, costume designer, art director. It's amazing, because at that level you get basically a very small handful of people doing their individual best work of their careers, but working as a team. And that's just
hello, my name is Barbaros. I am very excited by your lecture because these are the films that I grew up with, and so I have seen most of them, and Jurassic Park is one of my favorite because my father took me to Jurassic Park when I was 8. So I have seen that film more than 100 times, and I have seen it recently this summer, and I think it really holds up really well still, the visual effects.
yeah.
So I would like to ask you something about Stan Winston, actually, if you worked with him before. Or
About what?
about Stan Winston, the animator.
Oh, Stan Winston, sure.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do people, the visual effects people, work with real animators like Stan Winston?
Right.
And my second question is, are we losing the way of Stan Winston way of filmmaking, like puppet way, plastic way of filmmaking, and going into a very animation-based filmmaking? Are we going to lose this realistic sense in the future filmmaking? Thank you.
I couldn't have planted better questions in the audience if I'd written them myself. This is a really great point. Because it's very close to my heart. I really have a very strong love of the traditional filmmaking ways, like you mentioned. Stan Winston was a partner, founding partner in Digital Domain, another visual effects company in Los Angeles. So it was Stan, Jim Cameron, and was a founding senior technical director at that company as well. And it was so exciting to have a partner in an effects company be Stan Winston, to be, you know, one of the best traditional creature maker effects person.
I am sending my CV to them every year. So
Yeah.
I want to work there as well.
And unfortunately, well, so that was the first thing that I did. So we're literally building digital domain, and, next to the Rose Cafe, Venice Beach, California, hoisting the pirate flag, and it's all about the digital technology. IBM was a founding partner, so these big supercomputers and the latest SGIs, and I'm running across town, going to Stan Winston's shop, and he's got the Predator, and the T-1000 skeletons, and in the art department, where Crash McCreary's doing, art for the remakes and all that. It was just beautiful. It was wonderful. Unfortunately, you probably know Stan just passed away a few years ago. We were lucky enough to go to his tribute in LA. It was very moving. But his son and the company that he founded is still very productive, and they're moving forward. On a sad note, well, even sadder note than Stan passing, at ILM, the really lifeblood, the heart of the old school industrial light magic effects, like with Hook and Jurassic Park when it started to go away, was the physical model shop, the physical stuff. That they built the creatures and animated them in armatures. When ILM left the location that we worked at for so many long years in San Rafael, they moved to Presidio, now in San Francisco. They left behind the model shop, so the traditional model makers, the optical guys. And they survived on their own as Kerner Optical up until literally just a couple weeks ago, last month. So a whole era, a whole generation has really come to a close with them. They just couldn't compete. They couldn't get the work. Best guys in the world. We just built all the physical X-wings and the giant stars and the creatures and all that stuff. So that was really, really sad. It was just literally a couple of weeks ago.
Were you at ILM when they did the Borg on Star Trek First Contact?
Was I there?
That was
No. The
96.
Star Trek I was there for was Undiscovered Country.
Okay. The whales.
And that's what I loved about being at ILM, is the traditional model shop and the optical printing guys. And, so I guess that's kind of a downer. I guess is another friend of mine is an AD, very great assistant director on the model shop side, and he's really having a hard time finding work. So that's kind of on the visual effects side. Good friend of ours with the I have Stan Winston's name in my head. Puppeteer stuff. David Coles. Henson. Not Stan Winston. Jim Henson. They're still very small, but very, very active, doing film projects and collaborations with Sony and other studios. And Aardman Animations. Leica, yeah. Like Coraline, the latest example. But Aardman's got it. What's that? Starting a new film. There's a new Wallace and Gromit film coming out. If everybody loves Aardman's work on that front. So it's definitely not dead. It kind of needs the defibrillator every once in a while. But I hope it doesn't die, because it's a fantastic